We call these unique American artists traveloguers. They are independent filmmakers combining talent, imagination, and hard work to create travel adventure films. Traveloguers have researched the history of their subjects, lived on location for months at a time, and photographed their journeys. After completing each film, traveloguers travel throughout North America with films in hand to share their personal discoveries and insights with thousands of people. The film you are about to see was made by travelogger Frank Nichols. A competent filmmaker, Frank is noted for his creative photography and fine research skills. A graduate engineer who's held numerous management positions, Frank Nichols has a genuine gift for interacting openly with people of all cultural backgrounds and ages. And now, with Frank Nichols as your personal guide and narrator, enjoy this fascinating and ever-changing nation we call romantic Germany.
There is a land of mythic beauty in an old world where storybook castles crown forest-covered peaks, and valleys veiled in mist recall magical days of years long past. Here, music weaves a timeless enchantment for each listening ear, and alpine ridges lie cloaked in layers of majestic winter glades. This is a land of legends, of daring knights and fairy tale kings, a place of fantasy and folklore. This is romantic Germany. For many travelers, Frankfurt is their first window to Germany. Centuries ago, annual trade fairs held here made Frankfurt an important commercial center. But here on the Romer Square, visitors can return to medieval Frankfurt. This is where Johannes Gutenberg set up shop with the very first printing press. His invention changed the face of the world, and Germany's leaders became committed to literacy and education. Germany has produced many world-class poets, philosophers, and composers, and achieved virtually 100% literacy among its people. From Frankfurt, a brief journey down the Main takes you to Rüdesheim on the Rhine River, the heart of the wine country. For more than 2,000 years, the hills along the Rhine have been lovingly cultivated to produce the most succulent grapes for the finest wines. Rüdesheim is a center of the Rhine wine-producing region. Favored by tourists and natives alike for its outstanding wine cellars, the city is also home to some of the most beautiful old houses and half-timbered buildings in Germany. From here, you can take a river steamer down the Rhine, the busiest waterway in all of Europe. More than 10,000 castles and battlement-capped ruins are located in West Germany, and you'll see many of them along the hilltops of the Rhine. In the 13th century, the notorious robber knights of Sonneck Castle developed a passion for exacting high tolls from passing ships, or spilling the blood of their passengers. The Pfalz was built entirely for this purpose. From this island in the middle of the Rhine, robber knights would string heavy chains across the river. 10% of the ship's valuables was the usual levy, a lengthy stay in the castle's dungeons awaited those refusing to pay. After passing the crumbling fortress of Schönberg, the river narrows into a dangerous channel of rapids. At the Lorelei Rock, according to legend, the lonely mermaid Lorelei is said to have lured many river boatmen to destruction with her spellbinding song. Farther down the Rhine, the river widens and the modern complex housing the federal capital at Bonn comes into view. Since 1949, West Germany has been governed by a constitutional democracy seated in this lovely old city. Bonn's most famous son is probably Ludwig van Beethoven. His birthplace and family home is now a museum filled with many of his belongings. Long after becoming deaf in his late 40s, Beethoven continued to compose some of the most magnificent music the world has ever known. Not far down the Rhine is the ancient city of Cologne. When an Italian chemist settled here in the early 1700s, he refocused the world's attention on the city with his famous scented waters called Eau de Cologne. But long before that, the city was a large Roman outpost. During the 1st century, the Romans encircled Cologne with walls. The Roman gate still stands. But Cologne's most noteworthy landmark is the cathedral. Its soaring spires and distinctive flying buttresses are characteristically Gothic. Construction began in 1248 to house the relics and sacred remains of the three Magi in what was to be the largest and most remarkable of Gothic cathedrals. But after 300 years of construction, Gothic architecture had gone out of style, and so had contributions for this colossus. For another 300 years, the cathedral sat unused, overshadowed by unfinished spires. In the 19th century, with the revival of the Gothic style, work started again. By 1880, the extraordinary Cologne Cathedral was finished. Today, the ongoing task of maintenance and repair employs 70 people year-round. Steinau, Alsfeld, and Ziegenhain are three ancient storybook towns. In the half-timbered village of Steinau, two young scholars known as the Brothers Grimm grew up in the heart of fairy tale land. Enchanted with the folklore of the region, they spent their lives collecting stories about cunning witches, playful fairies, vagabond kings, and star-crossed lovers. To its collection of stories, the town of Steinau added another folk tale, a claim to the longest coffee table ever, more than a mile in length, laden with the finest German pastries and cakes. One town the Grimm brothers certainly visited is nearby Alsfeld. Its medieval square with half-timbered buildings has been undisturbed by time. Traveling through this picturesque area, not only were the Grimm brothers delighted with the folklore of the area, but were impressed by its people. In one of their best-known fairy tales, the Grimms built a story around a small girl, a wolf, and a piece of local peasant's clothing. Their famous tale is Little Red Riding Hood. Every year, nearby Ziegenhain hosts a festival where the romantic fairy tales of this region come to life. The story of Little Red Riding Hood is charmingly retold. The distinctive costumes of the region are just as popular today as they were centuries ago. Hamelin, Goslar, and Celle are 3 other towns with stories to tell. On the banks of the Weser River is Hamelin, or Hamelin as the Germans would call it, the famed village of the Pied Piper. In this enchanted burg, elaborate gables, pyramids, and scrolls became popular building decorations during the 17th century in a style known as Weser Renaissance. One of the most imaginative buildings in this style carries the name of that famous legendary character of Hamelin, the Pied Piper. The Germans called him the Rat Catcher. The legend dates to the year 1248. The town was being overrun by rats. The city fathers, pressured by the townspeople, elected to hire a mysterious stranger to rid the town of the rodents. As legend has it, the village leaders decided to cheat the piper, paying him only a token wage for ridding the town of the rats. In retaliation, the piper exacted a much dearer price for his work. He bewitched the town's children into leaving with him, and none of the youngsters were ever seen again. The quaint village square in Goslar is an exhibit of medieval architecture. Gothic, Renaissance, Baroque, and Romanesque designs, they're all here. A brief history of the town is revealed by the clock in the square. Every hour, mechanical figures come alive to portray how silver mining made Goslar a wealthy imperial city in the Middle Ages. The Guild House, built in the 1400s, belonged to an organization of merchants who prospered in foreign trade. Beautiful slate roofs are a common sight in Goslar. An abundant supply of this building material is found in the nearby Harz Mountains. The Imperial Palace in Goslar was once home to the passions and intrigues of 11th and 12th century German emperors. Important decisions affecting all of Europe were made behind these walls. Inside, ornate murals depict early German history. Twice a week, the town square fills with buyers and sellers as the Goslar market gets underway. Local farmers set up colorful booths, offering the best their fields have produced. Goslar is the market center for the Harz Mountain region. In Celle, some of the handsome half-timbered buildings date back to medieval times. Many can be identified by their artistic inscriptions. Some are religious in nature, others offer personal accounts of the families who have owned them. The focal point of Celle is the Ducal Palace, an imposing reminder of former ruling families and their influence upon the town. Celle is known as the gateway to the moors of the Lunenburg Heath. This area is useless for farming, though a special breed of sheep seems to thrive here. Our exploration of Germany continues in Hamburg, Lübeck, and then east to Berlin. Just one glance at Hamburg or Hamburg tells you you're not in fairy tale land anymore. Hamburg is one of the great inland ports of Europe and has been a prosperous center of commerce since the Middle Ages. The city is built along a series of canals and narrow waterways that feed off of lovely Alster Lake. Hamburg is a city of gardens, grand hotels, private mansions, and elegant old buildings like the Renaissance Town Hall. For the last 250 years, St. Michael's Church has been the site of a beautiful musical tradition. Every day a chorale is played. Its pleasing melody flows from the church tower. In the shadow of the church tower, these 17th century buildings housed the widows of merchant traders. Today, they house boutiques and art galleries. In the 18th century, wealthy merchant traders built warehouses to process everything from finely crafted clocks and watches to Rhine wines and hearty sausages. Hamburg's warehouse complex is the largest in the world. The vitality of Hamburg's harbor can be experienced by excursion boat. Between 1850 and 1914, many immigrants left Europe from this busy harbor in search for a better life in the New World. Detailed records listing every passenger who sailed from Hamburg during that time are kept in the Museum of History. It's a popular destination for visitors researching family history in the Old World. In contrast to busy Hamburg, the quiet surrounding countryside is a patchwork of small, well-tended farms and thatched-roofed homes. Not far from Hamburg is another prosperous city, Lübeck. In the 13th century, the merchants of Lübeck, Hamburg, and Bremen formed the Hanseatic League. The city gauge dates from that period. The Hanseatic League helped to bring immense wealth to the region. Lübeck can be viewed from the waterway that completely surrounds the city. This 400-year-old warehouse was used to store salt, a product mined in the surrounding area. Lübeck's architecture is noteworthy. The use of stepped gables and brick is unique to this region. Famous for its almond confection, the marzipan, the Niederecker Marzipan Shop is a cozy stopover for visitors. The creation of the marzipan is steeped in medieval legend. According to the story, in 1407, Lübeck was under attack and provisions were sparse. The city's granaries were empty except for sugar and almonds. But the inconvenience of war was not enough to persuade the people of Lübeck to forego their passion for sweets. A reward was offered to anyone who could produce a dessert from the 2 items left in the granaries. On St. Mark's Day, a tasty concoction called the Bread of St. Mark was introduced and thoroughly enjoyed by a grateful city. Just outside Lübeck, the powder-white beaches of the Baltic Sea beckon you to the coastal resorts. Just 20 minutes from Lübeck are the hotels, restaurants, casinos, and splendid beaches of Travemünde. This is the most popular of the Baltic Sea resorts. These huge wicker chairs are a familiar sight here. They're designed with folding doors, offering protection from strong winds and privacy for changing into beachwear. On those days when the Baltic is too cold for swimming, the indoor pool is a popular substitute. The fun really begins when the wave machine is turned on. Visiting the attractive town of Travemünde is a delightful experience. A colorful promenade skirts the beach for a mile and a half. Sightseers are drawn here to all kinds of diversions. Folk dancing is a favorite pastime in this region. Those traveling by car can catch a ferry at Travemünde that will shuttle them north to the Scandinavian countries that border the Baltic Sea. Just across the water is East Germany. After World War II, Germany was divided among the Allies for occupation, and East Germany became part of the Soviet bloc. You must travel through East Germany to get to the city of Berlin. In West Berlin, The most poignant symbol of the war's devastation is the bombed-out tower of the Kaiser Wilhelm Church. This grim reminder of the past is found along one of the city's busiest boulevards, the Kurfürstendamm. West Berlin has a vibrant and at times frenetic pace. It's a center of education, fashion, and culture. Berlin is also Germany's largest industrial city. The Congress Center creates an international flavor within the city. The Victory Column commemorates the success of the Franco-Prussian War, which in 1871 unified the German states into a powerful empire. Berlin became the capital of the new nation, and the Reichstag housed its parliament. Years of political unrest and the burning of the building foreshadowed the rise of Adolf Hitler. Reconstructed, then damaged again during World War II, the Reichstag is today an exhibit hall. In 1961, the much-hated Berlin Wall divided the city. But the citizens of Berlin never lost their emotional ties to one another. On November 9th, 1989, that despised wall began to crumble when the East German government allowed its citizens to pass freely into West Berlin.
I haven't imagined that today in the morning to go over the line.
We are doing to Berlin West.
In an unforgettable display of emotion, East and West Berliners greeted each other. Once Berlin's triumphal arch, the Brandenburg Gate had become a symbol of division. But on the eve of 1990, the Brandenburg Gate returned to glory as an emotional expression of Germany's quest for reunification. Back in West Germany, Bamberg, Nuremberg, and Rothenburg are three noble ancient German cities. In the delightful old city of Bamberg, the town hall is built on a bridge that straddles the Regnitz River. The river divides the town into two distinct districts. In earlier days, the left bank was the home of Bamberg's ruling prince-bishops. With strong ties to Rome, Bamberg became a center of political power and trade, as well as a showcase of splendid medieval architecture. Its Romanesque cathedral dominates the bishop's side of town. The adjoining Renaissance building served both as home and administrative center for the bishops. Nearby, Concordia Palace was built in Baroque fashion during the 18th century. Though charming in its own right, life on the right bank did not possess the gilded magnificence of life on the left bank. This was where the common people lived and worked, always under the control of the bishops. The burghers did business primarily in the open pedestrian mall. Merchants still come here to display their crafts and earn their living. Just outside Bamberg is the enormous fortress of Coburg. Built during the troubled times of the Reformation for the Dukes of Coburg, this stronghold had a triple ring of fortifications. Martin Luther took refuge here at one time, and these walls may have inspired his anthem, "A mighty fortress is our God." In Coburg's downtown square, attractive buildings form a backdrop to a statue of Prince Albert. England's Queen Victoria commissioned the sculpture of her consort, who was raised here. Stately Ehrenburg Castle nearby was his boyhood home. But Coburg is best known for its Hummel porcelain figurines made at the Goebel factory. Introduced in the 1930s, the Hummel boys and girls were inspired by the paintings of a nun, Sister Maria Hummel. Germany has a wealth of health resorts and mineral springs, more than 250. Bad Kissingen is one of the loveliest in the land. The mineral waters found here are used to prevent and treat health problems. The elegant spa, with its spectacular gardens, is said to have been a favorite of Chancellor Otto von Bismarck, architect of German unification in the late 1800s. Prior to that time, Germany had been a collection of loosely bound feudal states. Bad Kissingen's annual Rakosi Fest celebrates the history of the town and the famous people who have visited the spa in times past. The actor dressed in green is portraying King Ludwig II, builder of most of Germany's fairy tale castles. Austrian Emperor Franz Joseph and his consort are also being brought to life. Many historical figures make an appearance here during the Rakosi Fest. With fortifications that totally surround the old town and castle complex, Nuremberg looks like something from an Arthurian legend. Below the ramparts in the middle of the city is the Hauptmarket. This was a center of economic life in Nuremberg during the Middle Ages. This finely detailed 14th century fountain is symbolic of Nuremberg and its reputation as a center of quality craftsmanship. Guilds established during this period instituted strict ethical work codes. These high standards of excellence became characteristic of fine German craftsmanship, and many have survived to this day. Many streets of the old city are pedestrian malls, which lead to historic sites like Nassau House, a 13th century patrician home. The Holy Ghost Hospital, also from that period, straddles the river. The old Customs Hall was originally a storage facility for grain. Rothenburg is a medieval time capsule. This beautifully preserved city is surrounded by ancient walls, towers, and ramparts. Every year on Whit Sunday, a colorful festival celebrates the Mighty Draft, an act that saved the town from destruction in 1631. The Holy Wars were coming to an end, but Catholics and Protestants were still fighting in this region. As troops prepared to sack the town, the invading commander, General Tilly, offered Mayor Noosh a large tankard of wine. On a bet, the commander agreed to save the city if the mayor could down the entire amount without stopping. Not one to back down from such a challenge, the mayor drained the tankard, saved the city, and promptly went to bed for 3 days. It's also been said that Mayor Noosh lost his taste for wine for nearly a week. The legend of the Mighty Draft became part of Rothenburg's history, and every day in the town square, these mechanical figures retell the story. As we continue our trip through Germany, we'll stop at Regensburg, Schwäbisch Hall, and Munich. Situated on the banks of the Danube River, Regensburg is another town where medieval history lives on. Its sturdy stone bridge is a masterpiece of 12th century engineering. This 14th century gate once marked a boundary of the city wall. St. Peter's Cathedral is one of the most beautiful examples of Gothic architecture in Bavaria. Lying on a trade route that once connected Northern Europe with Italy, Regensburg's merchants were heavily influenced by the much-admired merchants of Venice. It's not surprising that Venetian-style medieval towers, unusual in Germany, became fashionable palace homes for prosperous merchants who lived here. More modest dwellings, built and rebuilt over the centuries, are the homes of Regensburg's 100,000 residents. Back when the old stone bridge was under construction, workers were fed in a nearby building. Centuries later, on the same foundation, the sausage kitchen continues the tradition. In fact, it is said that those who've not visited the sausage kitchen have not seen Regensburg. Much of German culture is built upon many centuries of folklore. Even the smallest towns have a tradition of incorporating local legend into every celebration, and Neuburg is no exception. During the Old Town Festival, the Hobby Horse Dance tells the story of two brothers who were knights of the realm. Tempers flared when they discovered they shared passion for the same princess. But common sense prevailed before tragedy occurred, and the story has a happy ending. During the Middle Ages, the town of Schwäbisch Hall gained fame and fortune from a precious commodity, salt. The municipal square is evidence of its rich medieval past. An old pillory where prisoners were chained and exposed to ridicule has survived the passing of time. The townspeople developed a boiling process to extract the preservative from the rich salt wells found throughout the area. Every year, a festival commemorates the history of the early salt boilers and the prosperity they brought to Schwäbisch Hall. In a humorous reenactment of a famous event that occurred here in 1376, the salt boilers saved the miller's home and the rest of the town from fire. After being rescued, the miller prepares a huge cake so that the whole town can celebrate. At the edge of the Alps is the thriving city of Munich. From the pedestrian zone known as the Marienplatz, it's obvious that Munich, despite its size, still possesses all of the charm and character of a medieval German village. Dominating the Marienplatz is the Gothic Town Hall. It was turned into rubble during World War II, but has been lovingly and faithfully restored in every detail and at great expense. As early as the 8th century, monks began to settle here, and in the 9th century, a monastery was established. The monks perfected a strong beverage made from roasted and fermented barley that they called beer. They discovered its strengthening and sustaining values when they fasted during Lent and started to refer to the brew as liquid bread. And nowhere does more of that liquid bread flow than during Munich's Oktoberfest celebration. But Munich is much more than a city of beer gardens. It's home to grand palaces like the Residence, the National Theater, Excursion boats filled with passengers cruise slowly through the crystal clear waters of the Königssee, a narrow natural reservoir. The landscape around the lake is spectacular. If you choose to enjoy it on foot, you'll have an opportunity to see some lovely old buildings, including St. Bartholomew's Chapel. From the boat, a lone trumpeter's chorale echoes longingly across the mountains. Not far away is Chiemsee, one of the largest lakes in Germany. In 1878, King Ludwig II began building the last and most lavish of his 3 castles here on the island of Herrenchiemsee. Ludwig intended to build a full-scale copy of the Palace of Versailles, but only completed the great central block. The obsessive Ludwig wished to glorify Louis XIV and the principle of absolute monarchy. The beautiful Latona fountain and the incredible Hall of Mirrors were replicas of the French palace. Just to the west in the Wetterstein Mountains is Garmisch-Partenkirchen. In 1936, this captivating community hosted the Winter Olympic Games. Since then, it's become one of Europe's premier ski resorts. The pace here is slow and relaxed. No one in Garmisch ever seems to be in too much of a hurry, least of all the cows. Around 5 o'clock every day, the cows meander through town on their way home from a day in pasture. Traffic slows to a crawl, and people stop to grin at this familiar procession. As everyone knows, Garmisch cows always have the right-of-way. At nearby Eibsee, a cog railway carries visitors through lush alpine forests to the snow-dusted top of the world. From the Zugspitze, Germany's highest pinnacle, a glorious view of the Alps stretches before you. A cross marks the highest point in Germany. In 1633, the Black Death had found its way to the outskirts of the little town of Oberammergau. 1 person in every 10 was dying from the plague. Fearing that their village would be decimated like so many others, the townspeople gathered and made a solemn vow to reenact Christ's suffering if God would save them from the ravages of the epidemic. Miraculously, the town was spared. Since that time, the people of Oberammergau have gratefully carried out their promise every 10 years with their world-famous Passion Play. The village is also known for the beautifully painted frescoes that decorate many of the buildings. This fresco illustrates the skill of the town's wood carvers. For centuries, wood carvers have practiced their art in Oberammergau. Like his father and grandfather before him, Hermann Hasser is a master wood carver. At the age of 13, he was sent to Munich to learn the craft. Now in his 70s, he still takes pride and joy in his lifelong career. In the forested hills that surround Fussen, swirling mist parts to reveal the storybook castles of the Bavarian monarch, Ludwig II. The medieval fortress of Hohenschwangau was his childhood home. In this isolated castle, the young boy became enchanted with tales of frightful dragons and fearless knights. He never lost his passion for fantasy, and because of his eccentric behavior, was often called the Mad King. A horse-drawn carriage ride is a romantic way to approach Neuschwanstein. Ludwig's passion for drama and all things theatrical prompted him to have a theater designer rather than an architect draw the first sketches of his storybook castle. Construction commenced in 1869. Perched high on a rocky plateau of gray granite, Neuschwanstein, even with some unfinished interiors, is endowed with all of the qualities of a beautiful dream. As if Neuschwanstein wasn't grand enough, in 1870, in this nearby setting, Ludwig began building Linderhof. Completed 9 years later, the blended Baroque and Rococo adornment captured the romanticism of the Baroque period. After 17 years of lavish castle building, Ludwig's obsessions depleted his personal fortune and nearly bankrupted Bavaria. In 1886, his family and ministers had him declared mentally incompetent. Under guard, he was taken to Berg, where shortly after, he mysteriously drowned in Starnberger Lake. Ludwig II left a legacy of romantic structures that today draws tourists from all over the world and returns millions of marks each year to the German economy. Lake Constance, Meersburg, the Aargau region, and Baden-Baden are a few more memorable and scenic places to see in Germany. 45 miles long and 9 miles wide in places, Lake Constance is Germany's largest lake and a prime recreational destination. It straddles the borders of Austria, Switzerland, and southwestern Germany. Livestock graze the rolling meadows that surround Lake Constance. This is Germany's dairyland. On the northern shore, medieval Meersburg is regarded as one of the most beautiful towns in Germany. In the summertime, Meersburg is filled with people who like to shop, eat, and climb its steeply ascending streets for a magnificent view of the lake. Wherever you see the friendly Zimmer sign, you'll find an inexpensive bed and breakfast. Just east of Meersburg is the Aargau mountain region, famous for its cheeses. In a mountaintop shed, Billy Brown prepares his cheese for aging. After about a year, his cheeses are ready to be enjoyed by the many hikers who stop here for refreshment. A visit to the lake would be incomplete without a ferry boat ride to the flower island of Mainau. From April to September, the island is alive with the brilliant hues of thousands of subtropical plants. Overlooking the island is a Baroque palace belonging to Swedish scientist Count Bernadotte. The panorama of the Black Forest is an enchanting one, ever-changing, gradually giving way to rolling pastures. On the northern edge of the Black Forest is Baden-Baden, probably the most famous spa in Europe. The Romans were the first to use these mineral waters for therapeutic purposes, both for bathing and drinking. By the 19th century, this luxurious spa was completed. Since then, Baden-Baden has drawn the wealthy and aristocratic to its lavish hotels and elegant casino. August is the most exciting time of the year to visit Baden-Baden, and horse racing at Effesheim is the main event. Let's continue our travels in Germany with a stop in the university town of Heidelberg, then on to Trier and the Mosel Valley. For centuries, artists, musicians, and poets have had a love affair with Heidelberg, and it's easy to see why. The city sits on a series of charming terraces on the hills that rise above the peaceful Neckar River. Above, Heidelberg's enormous castle rests on Königstuhl Mountain. The vast castle complex was built, destroyed, and rebuilt over a 500-year period. It's a showcase of architectural styles. Within the city, Heidelberg University, the oldest in Germany, is the center of cultural and intellectual pursuits. Founded in 1386, this was the setting for Sigmund Romberg's popular operetta, The Student Prince. In those days, unruly students were locked up in the Studentenkarzer to contemplate the error of their ways, and it would appear to improve their graffiti skills. Today, Heidelberg's student population is an international mix of more than 27,000, or about 1/5 of the city's population. Not far from Heidelberg, the small town of Diedesheim celebrates a time-honored tradition. During the Middle Ages, town officials often allowed farmers to graze animals on adjacent lands in return for a saleable goat of good breeding stock. In modern times, this 500-year-old custom is still observed every spring. The ancient city of Trier is situated where the Mosel River enters Germany. In 15 BC, Roman emperors made Trier their northern capital. Once a fortified gateway, the Black Gate is the largest and best preserved structure of its kind north of the Alps. The imperial baths were begun in the 4th century by Emperor Constantine, but were never finished. His palace was eventually completed and stands watch over the city like a sentinel. Legend tells us that a vision of the cross led Constantine to Christianity. His conversion had a powerful impact on the Roman world and was felt at Trier. By the 4th century, the Catholic Church was firmly established here. This heritage is clearly seen on the market square. This former residence of nobility gives insight into the defensive architecture of the 13th century. With the entrance on the 2nd floor, it was accessible only by a retractable ladder. Municipal buildings on the main square are additional evidence of Trier's wealth, resulting from its ties to Rome, but also a result of its location on the Mosel River. Vineyards hug the shoreline on the sunny slopes of the Mosel Valley. The steep, neatly plotted vineyards of Bernkastel are well known for the quality of their grapes. Supposedly, during the Middle Ages, a Prince Bishop of Trier was seriously ill, and nothing seemed to cure him until one of Bernkastel's vintners brought the bishop a bottle of his best wine. Since that time, the medicinal properties of wine have been the stuff of legends. Farther down the Mosel is the charming town of Trauben-Trarbach, which has for centuries based its economy on the area's productive vineyards. Ruins of a huge fortress stand guard over this fertile valley. Trauben-Trarbach is but one of the many towns along the Mosel that's waiting to be discovered. These towns are gateways to this wine-producing region. Many of these vineyards have been owned by the same families for generations. Herr and Frau Troller carefully pruned the vines to allow Aaron's son to better reach the ripening grapes. When fully matured, these grapes will be sent to a local cooperative. Fine Mosel wines are made there and shipped all over the world. Farther downstream, the river has cut deeper, creating high bluffs. As we approach Kokum, an imposing medieval castle offers one more setting for the rich legends and folklore of a real storybook land, romantic Germany.
We hope you thoroughly enjoyed this European travel experience. You can continue your exploration of Europe with other videos from the Travelogger collection as your guide. Each Travelogger video takes you to some of the most beautiful settings in the world. You'll visit many famous landmarks, as well as unique, out-of-the-way places that most tourists rarely discover. Encounter colorful pageantry and cultures that are vastly different from our own. You may even uncover your own heritage. One thing is certain, an excursion through the entire Travelogger collection will greatly increase your understanding and appreciation of the world in which you live. To start or build your own Travelogger library, call our toll-free number today.